Hello and welcome to the Warp Shelf. I'm Frank Duran.
I'm Deshaun Vasquez.
And today we're talking Peacemaker and if it belongs on the Warp Shelf. Guys, we want to add to the show, just to let you guys know, that we want to add this element of, just for longtime listeners, but new listeners, welcome. Hey, how are you? We're doing a new thing on the Warp Shelf where we'll decide at the end of the show if it belongs on the fucking shelves. You can see from behind us, we are big physical media guys. This is one of those things that I think even for shows that we are streaming, we want to, talk about if it's worth, owning it, actually.
Yeah.
And, like,
Were we
and I
given
think,
the option?
yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things that I want to organize the show and push us forward and really make it so that way you guys know what you're getting into when you get into every episode. You're going to get a deep dive and you're going to get a rating of does it belong on the shelf? Should you buy it at a discount? Stay streaming, or our dreaded nope.
Nope, just not at all.
Just not at all. Just don't do that. But we're talking about HBO Max's Peacemaker, which is the it's funny. I was trying to figure it out, Deshaun, because you can't say this is the first DC show, but this is the first DC EU show, I would say, right? This is the extended universe of the movies. And most definitely is. It's not even messing around. It very much is like, yes, we are part of that universe. And you're like, oh, all right, okay. It's funny because I think that this is DC's first, really taking it seriously show. And I know, guys, you're big fans of the CW shows. I know there's some Gotham fans out there. I think me
Gotham
and Deshaun,
was Fox.
Yeah, but we all know that was what all that is. That wasn't it. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't like fully like kaboom. Even the CW shows having the Flash in there as like a thing. You're like,
And I will say, as much as we love to shit on the CW style shows, most of them started well. I still argue that the first 2-ish seasons of Flash are really good. And then there was that skew, the ratio of comic book to soap opera CW bullshit, and that got way skewed.
Yeah, it just goes way too far, and you're like, and of course that happens to Arrow almost immediately, and you're like, but it's funny. I want to say right off about Peacemaker. It's kind of like they learned some good lessons from Harley Quinn. The Harley Quinn WB DC animated show that was a huge hit on HBO Max when it first launched. And of course it was a hit before that, but HBO Max was like, here's another fucking season. Now
that people were actually watching it on a platform that a lot of people use as opposed to the DC Universe app.
Yeah, you're like,
which I appreciate as a DC head, but I always knew from the jump was way too fucking niche to work.
Yeah, no, it's like I love it. I love DC, but that we all knew that was gonna fold. The bigger fish would come along and just take it. And HBO Max was that bigger fish. But basically, I think that they got the lesson is that Harley Quinn is an adult, complicated show, even for an animated show, and they're able to really bring that adult flavor to Peacemaker. And I know Peacemaker is a direct continuation of Suicide Squad, and it's just James Gunn going off, but you could see the thought process of WB being
it is funny how the genesis of it started. It was literally James Gunn finished the Suicide Squad. He's sort of in between wrapping post-production on the Suicide Squad and going into pre-production for Guardians 3. He's stuck at home. It's lockdown. He's bored out of his mind. He decides to write Peacemaker as sort of a why not? And then he's and WB's just what do you want to spin off from the Suicide Squad, if anything? He's just Peacemaker. That's the avenue I want to explore. Yeah. And then he wrote the show in 8 weeks.
Right. It's crazy. I think this is a really interesting series to take a look at because it's a spin-off from a show.
Mhm.
It's kind of a pandemic production, you know, like, and it's also it's funny because it's like the R-rated Suicide Squad just continuing on, you know,
Yeah.
into more stuff, and that's not a bad thing, because like I think we're gonna keep going back to our Suicide Squad episode. So please, guys, we have a Suicide Squad episode. Give that a listen if you haven't yet, and come back and we'll talk more here for Peacemaker. Now, right off the bat, this is a TV show, so we're gonna talk some spoilers. Like, that's just it's how it works. We can't just talk about the plot without spoiling things. So guys, little tack for the spoilers alert there. Please finish Peacemaker before you watch this episode. But really, if you want that little review before you pause, is that Peacemaker is quite the step up from any DC TV show that we've had live action wise. I think it's a huge, like, whoosh.
Yeah,
you know,
and
like,
to be fair, that mostly comes down to, like, they had 3 good live action shows. One was Swamp Thing, and then they canceled it. One was Doom Patrol, which is still going, and then the other is this, because Titans is garbage.
Yes. And it's like, and I've heard great things about Doom Patrol. I am going to get to that at some point. I'm not against it. I'm not. It's not like Titans where I'm like, cool.
Yep.
Yeah. You know, like I'm like,
I'm not caught up. I've only watched the first season, and the first season was very fucking good.
Yeah.
It's just like, they're just doing Grant Morrison's run, obviously, and you're like, good, justice.
Good, do it. And you know, that's fine by me. But I will say that this is like a standalone, you know, this ain't a team. This is not, you know, it's just, I mean, it's a team in the show, but like, it's very much like Peacemaker's show, you know, like, and that's interesting, you know, like, cause we don't, even in, you know, shows like Gotham or Flash, it becomes like a whole, like, oh, now there's a bunch of Flashes, and in Gotham it's like, oh, there's all the villains.
It's
stuff
pre-Batman, but here are all the Batman villains anyway.
No,
so by the time Batman's actually
on Gotham today, but
so by the time that Batman's actually active, these dudes are going to be like geriatric,
right? You're like, But I want to say that, like, like my actual like review before it, there's spoilers, is that this is such a funny, heartfelt, very complicated show, and it's definitely worth the watch. And
the Suicide Squad also had this, but this also feels the most, even more so, like James Gunn's pre-Marvel work. Like, I get more like Slither and Super vibes here than I get through, like, obviously either the Guardians movies or even the Suicide Squad to an extent.
Even that the final fight scene in Peacemaker's at a barn, like Slither, you know, like you're like I see what's happening. You're like, I see what's up. But guys, spoiler alert, moving on. Watch the show. But I will say, don't get it spoiled for you. Fucking watch this. This is worth it. And we'll give the full review at the end. But basically, I want to start off with the most important part of this show. That fucking opening is hilarious. That
you mean the great anime opening of 2021?
Greatest OP of this
Rob and I
season.
were watching the show like together as it was coming out, and we kept making the joke that it's just like, I swear to God, if Peacemaker gets snubbed for best OP in the next anime awards.
It's true. I think that's kind of the feel, is that it's not like, my wife saw it as quite silly, but that's kind of the feel, is that like it's supposed to be an anime opening, you know, like it's sort of like all your favorite characters doing.
It's a direct
things.
Contrast. It's sort of almost making fun of the idea that the fact that the show is supposed to be taken so seriously, just the idea that they're doing the silly dance, but everyone is just fucking straight faced and just dour, and that's what like sells it. So it's like, it's a good juxtaposition. It's not just a silly dance.
It's pretty fucking funny. I think the best part, though, obviously, is Eagly looking down at his feet to make sure he hit his landing and then shifting himself.
Yeah, just that few seconds before the opening is done where you see everyone just fucking panting. And so Eagly trying to adjust himself.
I love that. And I've seen the behind the scenes, and you're like, this looks like a lot of fun. They look like they had a lot of fun doing it, and it gets across so much about the show, like so weirdly, like
Yeah, and I've had Do You Want to Taste It like on repeat for weeks now.
Yeah, I knew you would. I was like,
Yeah.
if you don't know, I'm really into music, and I listen to a lot. I try to keep up with. I literally sit on the Google like new releases page, and I click the new things and see if anything's good. Deshaun's a soundtrack guy, classic film guy, where you're like a what's your favorite band? And he's like, the orchestra from London. Yes, they do.
Just like whatever, nice... like, whatever the composer of Chrono Trigger was. Like shit like that. My relationship with music is a lot more passive.
Yeah, I'm much more. I search out music. So the minute I saw that there was like some rock and roll that might be up your alley playing at the beginning of this, I was like, Deshaun's
yeah, and some of those things were like, yeah, I've heard that song before.
Yeah, right.
And I've already liked that song. But when you give it the context of something you really like a show or a game or something like that, then it just like helps to stick.
It does. It really does. I think that I'm sure everybody in this show, and I will say that is that the soundtrack in Suicide Squad's good, but I think that this feels almost more personal and like, and it's like James Gunn was able to like cultivate this like this very specific sound for Peacemaker, like this very like glam rock, like 80s metal, rock playing all the time. Very cheesy, very sappy, very like, deep down, every time Peacemaker's hearing it, he's like thinking about things,
Yeah.
like, like, and you're like, instead of just being like, music.
This is when men were men, when they weren't afraid to be women.
I do love that.
And then pulls out the fucking Poison album.
It's so funny, dude. I really enjoyed the like all the music throughout this whole thing. I think it's extremely well picked and then well used.
For insert songs. And as far as composition is concerned, we actually have our boy Kevin Kiner on the composition for this, who is the composer for Clone Wars and Rebels.
Hell yeah. Give that man more money. Now, I think we have to, I'm bringing it kind of up, is that like one of the most important things about this show is that there's actual complexity going on, not just with the characters, but of the situations. There's lots of huge gray area in this. Very, like everything is like, well, that could go one way or the other, like you're like, I think they do a fantastic job of constantly riding that line, like of like these complex, deeper characters that doesn't feel like it's forced or unearned. It
doesn't feel like the first Suicide Squad movie, basically.
Yes.
Where they have to constantly tell you that they're the bad guys and this is a morally gray story as opposed to actually showing it in any degree.
Yep. I think that, and even in the Suicide Squad, I think that there's like there's definitely there's complexity in the characters, absolutely. But I think he takes it so much further here, like with pretty much everybody, he's able to like take it that much further of being complexity, which is nice.
When you have the advantage of a TV series, so you have just sheer length to actually like develop your character, but then also focusing on one person as opposed to like these big egos and ensemble from the Suicide Squad. Like the only one who had like any, like the only time we had seen, like the only one who had like any prior stuff was Harley, because she had shown up in the last one and she had Birds of Prey. And like Rick Flag had only shown up in Suicide Squad, but he was kind of a minor in that.
Yeah, it's one of those things that like, it's nice to just not do, like, this is a great cast and a great ensemble, but like this isn't like a crazy ensemble where you have all these gigantic egos having to like work around, like it's very much just like, it's very set in what it's trying to accomplish, and I appreciate that. I'm like, okay, like, like this, and that's what I think really sells this show, is that it has things to say, a lot, a lot. It's got a lot of things to say. You know, it's not just. I think Suicide Squad really nails it at the end with what they're trying to say, but this is like trying to say a lot of things. You know, like often. You know, like trying to say, you know, how we deal with depression with what's the character's name? Who's the computer guy? I'm sorry.
Economos, John.
Economos. Like I love the way like they like kind of deal with like how older men are dealing with depression, you know, like how, you know, bullying can like trying to say something about bullying too, even for fun, you know, even for the guys that you like, you know, like it's kind of interesting. They're trying to say there, and like,
and in this show, which could be very much mean spirited, and we would just kind of accept it for that because that's just what you signed up for. Right. The fact that it actually takes the moment to be like, huh, he feels bad for making fun of them earlier, but it doesn't feel like this is where we put the moral.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying.
It doesn't feel like it's, you know, it's not on the nose. It doesn't feel preachy. Because no matter like how well intentioned you are, if you make it too preachy, it just comes off as annoying.
Yeah, it does. And I think that they do such a great job of integrating the complexity of Peacemaker's dad, of course, is that like that his dad's like a raging fucking racist, and you know, like, and what is that do growing up, and like how he was and raised and everything, and like, and then also what do you do if your dad's just a fucking crazy racist? You know, that might be you don't know for sure, but he's the leader of the Aryan Front. You know, like you're like, oh.
At least an equivalent.
Yeah, you're like, oh. I actually really enjoyed all of that. I thought that was some of the best parts of this. Is that this show was not afraid to like show this actually racist character, which I know in this day and age is kind of touchy to even do a racist guy.
I appreciate, you know, like, the balls and the fact that we're actually doing like straight up neo-Nazis, as opposed to like the Marvel thing where it's just like, well, it's different. They're Hydra. Don't get mad.
It's okay. It's okay.
Don't get mad.
They sort of do it by being like them wearing the dragon head instead of the like. And that part I was like, you could have just kept leaning into it, but I see what you're doing, you know, like I see.
But it's not like a full deflection like Marvel often does.
It's not like, yeah, exactly. I will say that this is, I mean, I'm saying a mature show, but this is an adult show, you know, like this is not something, you know, violence wise. Yeah, you can't show this to your kids. But would they even fucking understand what we're talking about here?
I would say most of the time.
Most of the time, yeah, exactly. I'm just saying a generalization of that. But, you know, like, but it's like, this is not, it's funny. This gave me a lot of hope for DC, this show, watching it, because it feels like they understand that there is this huge DC audience that wants these adult content. I mean, we see it all the time in the comics. They're very adult stories. There's very little DC comics that are not just adult, you know, like in some way, you know, like, and I'm not saying they're all bloody or full of sex or anything, but like,
they can be in their own little bubble though. It doesn't matter whether they're like in universe or not, which is why I like that the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker specifically are as dark as they are and as adult as they are, and then we'll get into like the Justice League thing later, but the idea that we still confirm it in the DCEU actually helps broaden the DCEU in a lot of ways, because you're just like, you could have the PG-13 Justice League nonsense over here, and you can have the like the sex-ridden, violence-ridden Peacemaker show over here in the same universe, and it doesn't matter. It's all good. Right.
And then there's still Robert Pattinson's Batman, you know, like, there's still all that, you know, like it's still all fucking, I mean, that's not confirmed here that it's he's his Batman, because I assume it's Batfleck in this, but they don't really
because
fucking
it's DCEU.
Confirm. I do think there's like a few things that I do have nitpicky with this show.
Well, before we get into that, I do kind of want to go like cast by cast, because we haven't really talked about like the actual cast members much.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. First off, like, John Cena is perfect.
He's great.
Perfect.
I mean, it was already like the Suicide Squad had already impressed me Where that was like the first time, because aside from him playing like grizzled military types like in Bumblebee and shit like that, like the Suicide Squad, especially with the moment where he's trying to kill Ratcatcher 2, which is the thing that made Gunn want to do a spinoff about him specifically. He wanted to like unpack that a bunch.
Yeah.
That was the thing where I'm like, oh shit, Cena can act.
Right? I think we said that in our review. We were like, this is Cena's best. No, Peacemaker is Cena's best. This is really surprising. I mean, I don't mean to be offensive, but it's a transition from a wrestler, but like, you know, like, so that's like one of those things where you're like, you know, they can only do action films, you know, or only do certain things. And I think John Cena shows here that he may be one of the best, like, wrestling actors we got, you know. I don't think Dwayne The Rock Johnson can fucking turn in a performance like this. This is something else.
No, he hasn't thus far.
Yeah. Like, this is something else. This is a lot more complex.
Yeah, it's
got
like
a lot more things.
him and Batista, which is interesting because I don't follow wrestling, but I know like they had like a big thing back when they were still wrestling. Like there was those parallels.
Yeah, they were fighting each other.
So they're always connected as like rivals in a way.
Yeah, it's the fun of it, right? It's like our Stallone and Schwarzenegger, but now, you know, like a little bit, sort of, not as vicious.
No, I get what you mean.
Yeah, not as vicious as like making Stallone do Mr. Mom, or what was the one? No, what's the one where he does the movie with his grandmother and he's the cop and he has to like go out with his mom on patrol or something like that.
I don't remember.
Oh man, it's a really bad Stallone movie. Somebody in the comments, please, as we're forgetting this, put it down there, because I do remember this movie being so bad. But it was one of those things that like Stallone and Schwarzenegger were supposedly up for the same role, but Schwarzenegger thought it was so ridiculous that he turned it down. But like, told everybody that he was really interested in it, and that's why Stallone took
just those power plays. It's so ridiculous.
But
so yeah, Cena's great in the series. I'd say we'd probably go next to like Freddie Stroma as Vigilante, as far as like most recurring, which is interesting. He's so fucking good, and he was actually a last minute replacement. Obviously, they haven't said like who the initial actor was for, but he like came really late in the game.
Really? I didn't know that.
Which seems super odd because he just fits. And you can't even like imagine like different chemistry with someone else than Cena for just their back and forth.
Right. Oh, sorry. I found the movie. Stop or My Mom Will Shoot is the name of the Stallone movie.
Oh, sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's something. But I agree. I think Vigilante is a delight. I think he fits so perfectly. I love his costume. I think it's so DC, very much.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Like, and this was a thing in the Suicide Squad as well. I love that there's just like this genuineness to the costumes where they're very comic book accurate. They don't really go out of their way to like, oh yeah, but it's different because it's still like a suit. Like it's tactical. You're just like, no, it's a costume. It's okay.
Right. It doesn't have to make a lot of sense, you know?
Yeah, like he's basically like at the end of the day, Peacemaker's kind of wearing like padded khakis and a t-shirt with a stupid silver helmet, and the fact that they just do it like that and they're not even ashamed of it is great because I love the MCU, but I do get sort of fatigued and sick of the whole like, aren't superheroes silly? Just like, how many of these have you made? You don't need to be embarrassed anymore. It's okay.
Right. Just lean into it. So I will say my one nitpick does come with Vigilante, though. My one fucking nitpick. And James Gunn's kind of notorious for this, and he's kind of introduced it too much into the MCU, and now they always do it, is when a serious scene happens, they make a joke. And Vigilante was always doing that, where it was like he was the one making the joke. And sometimes it works, like the like I'm doing face muscles and like look at my dick. Like I fucking love that scene. Where he's like, no, you're gonna shove your dick at me. He's like, no, just look at my dick, man. Just right now, look at my dick. Yeah. I was losing it at that. That works. The one with his dad and like trying to like comfort like him, that was rough. That was like, it wasn't there, you know, it's.
I agree with you, But I think it helps cushion it at the fact that like Vigilante is a fucking sociopath and clearly just cannot read the room every single
Yeah.
time. So it feels less just like this is a Marvel script, so it is determined by the algorithm that a joke must be here, here, and here to remove
Yes.
any tension we might have in the scene. It's more just like Adrian is a fucking nut who doesn't know how to read the room. And they sort of make fun of it in like the start of the next episode right after that.
Yeah.
It's just like, man, we just had this great time. He killed his dad, and we just had this amazing fart joke, and now you're just really bringing it down.
Yeah, you're really bringing it down. It's like that saved it, but in the scene, I was very like, couldn't we have a moment where Peacemaker, like, you know, deals with this fucking situation for a second, you know?
Yeah.
Like, instead of making the joke, but like, that's my really only nitpick is that like James Gunn, and it's not really like that it's a bad thing. It's that he fucking introduced it to the MCU, and the MCU was like, we're gonna run with this for every script, not a single fucking script.
It's like a little bit of
a serious moment.
It was like a little bit of Whedon and like a little bit of him, and like Taika Waititi loves to do that too, so it just keeps feeding itself.
Yeah, and it's like, and I get it. There's serious scenes, and like you kind of want to crack a joke. It's what comedians do, you know, like it's serious, so fucking time to crack a joke. And
but
like,
at the same time, it's also one of those things where like it almost comes off as just like you're afraid to be genuine.
Yes, and that's my only problem with that moment is like they feel so genuine in all the other moments, and even Vigilante not getting it is like, you know, totally, you know, usually totally fine, but here it was like.
So, as far as other cast members are concerned,
well,
we have.
I want to say one thing though. Vigilante is the most dangerous guy in this fucking show. If we're talking like Peacemaker's dangerous, and obviously he's got like all the gadgets too, and he's
built like a brick shithouse.
Yes, but like if we're talking about the
Vigilante's
guys who
so like casually fucking deadly.
Yes, I love the scene where he takes apart the Nazis at the table. That in the prison, that scene is incredible. Like he really fucking, you're right. It's the casualness of how he just rips people apart that you're like, all right. You're like, okay. And then the end scene, of course, which I think we'll talk about that later. He really fucking lets loose in that one. And you're like, shit. Like, you're like, oh, damn. I didn't know he was just going to be chopping people apart. Okay.
But we mentioned Economos, stayed by the great Steve Agee, who's worked with Gunn before on a bunch of other projects. So he's very good to see him here. Jennifer Holland, who was in the Suicide Squad. She's also James Gunn's girlfriend, now fiance.
Now that's the weird part to me with all this. It's not like a abuse of power thing. And this will be my other nitpick, is that I like Harcourt. I think she's good. I think she's a good character and she adds to this story. But they don't really develop her much, you know? Like, I think that they kind of, you know, like it's like they kind of like don't spend time on her character, and it feels weird because everyone else gets so much time, you know? Like, and you're kind of like, wait, like it kind of feels like James Gunn fell in love with this woman and then like didn't have put his reasonings forward why people, you know, she would be the love interest, other than of course she's
the only minor thing
you know,
she
like,
really has is just the idea of like her opening up and the idea that she has to like lead the team after Myrn is gone. Yeah,
and I like it, but that's like, it's funny. It's not character development. It's like plot development there.
Yeah.
You know, like it's like things are moving because of the story, not her, you know, like, because she went from being like, they did this thing where she like became more sympathetic, but they did that over like her taking like just a lot of really quiet scenes. And sometimes I feel like it's showing, not telling. And then other times I'm like, we could have spent a little bit more time here. You know, like we could have
thankfully we do have like another season to do that.
Yeah, totally.
Because I figured that this was just going to be a mini series. So it did actually surprise me that we were getting another season.
Yeah, right.
I figured that if we were going to get anything else, it'd maybe be like another spinoff for like one of the other roster members from the Suicide Squad or something.
Yeah, I kind of knew by the end that it was definitely 2 seasons. I was like, oh, like we've set up the team, you know, like we can carry this, you know, like we can, you know, like we can move this forward.
She is good in the part though.
Yes,
and because it's one of those things where like whenever this happens, I immediately like narrow my eyes. I'm like, okay, is this gonna be like a Helen Bonham Carter or Mila Jovovich situation where you're
Yes.
just gonna make it weird for everyone else?
Yeah, that was the part that I sort of felt weird about, is like there's definitely shots where you're like, I know John Cena's character is supposed to fall in love, but did James Gunn fall in love? Did you fall in love on set? Like, you know, like is that what's going on here? You know, like is that like he kind of like, because there's definitely a lot of like slow motion shots of her and her just being gorgeous, and you're like, kind of feels like you fell in love, James. Like, kind of feels like you fell in love.
Well,
you know,
definitely wasn't over the production because they've
No.
been together for years before
Oh,
even
really?
the Suicide Squad came out. Yeah, so it wasn't like a thing where it happened during the course of the production of this.
Oh, that almost makes it weirder, though. That
Yeah.
you're like, almost. Like, it's not as weird. I was a little worried that, like, they got together on this shoot, and I was like,
No.
please don't be abuse of power. But, you know, like, you're like, but, you know, they seem very happy, so it's not like.
So, I'm forgetting the actor's name who plays Myrn because I really like Myrn.
Yeah, I forget his name also. I can get up the IMDb.
He has like the perfect like straight man. I know when I was watching Rob, he's just like he has the best attitude for all this ridiculous shit.
Yeah.
It's just like these fucking morons every time.
It's true. Every time he's like, God damn it. I like that.
And we have Danielle Brooks from Orange is the New Black as Adebayo.
Yeah, which like she's already great in
Yeah.
Orange is the New Black. It's like it's one of those things where you're like, oh, thank God she's in more shit. And
Oh, dude, you never finished Orange is the New Black, but like the shit that she got to do in like those last couple of seasons,
right?
whew, like really showed her off, as opposed to like her character on Orange is the New Black being like, it's tasty, she's hilarious, she's the fun character. Like they give her shit to chew on in those last couple of seasons.
Nice.
It's sad.
Oh damn. Now, sorry, you were asking his name. It's Chukwudi Owuji is his.
Oh,
is
yeah,
his
yeah,
name. And then I do want to give credit though to, even though he plays a racist piece of shit, Robert Patrick as Augie Smith as Peacemaker's
Oh yeah,
dad.
he's great.
He's great. He's
They're not mutually
intimidating.
exclusive. He's great at it.
Yeah, he's great at it. Like that's the
Yeah.
thing. And I mean, I know he's played some racist characters before, and you're like, yeah, okay. Funniest bit is that D. Bradley Baker voices Eagly. I think that's fucking funny.
That does not surprise me. He's always like the animal guy.
Right? You're like, okay, Perry the Platypus is now just Eagly. You're like,
Yeah, he was also
like,
fucking not Appa. Who's the monkey in Avatar?
oh,
The lemur.
oh my God, why can't I not remember his name? Will come to us.
But yeah, he tends to be the guy like him and Frank Welker for like, we need a guy who can do animal noises.
Can you do a bunch of animal noises for us?
Just like, not only can I do that, but I can do New Zealand for the fucking clones and Clone Wars. I could do a bunch.
And he's Almec of you know, Legends of the Forbidden Temple. You know, like that's the most important. You know, gotta give it up there. And he's in, like, you're right. He's Morris in fucking Shang-Chi. The guy is always the animal. You know, like they're like, oh yes, here you go. Which, you know, quite the fucking thing to just keep doing. You know, like.
Okay, we were talking about Eagly, so now we got to talk about Eagly.
I love Eagly.
Eagly is great.
I'll say this right now. I was saying the whole show, if Eagly gets shot, if Eagly gets hurt, I'm fucking turning off this show. I'm fucking turning it off.
It's over.
It's over. It was funny because I immediately went like Grogu on him. I'm like, Eagly's amazing. This is the best part of the show. If you've hurt him, I'm going to fucking turn the show off. Like,
I mean, they did hurt him.
I know, but it was like, you knew that he was just taking that hit, you know?
Yeah.
It was just like, ooh, you know, like.
The effects for Eagly are, for the most part, pretty spotless most of the time. It's just one of those things where I don't even think about it. And that's the best thing you can say about an effect like that, where I'm just like, oh yeah, it's Eagly. He's an eagle. Eagly. And you don't even think about it. It's like, oh yeah, that's just an eagle there.
I also really love how much he's integrated into the story. I really thought it was just a throwaway joke. I totally thought it was just like, yeah, it's Peacemaker. He's got Eagly, and they were just gonna like shoot him or sacrifice him early in the season. But I kind of fell in love with Eagly and was like, you better not. You better not fucking touch. He's an endangered animal. How dare you try to hurt him? But I really do love that he like constantly brings him prey and of course the hugs. The hugs are so damn cute. The hugs
Yeah.
are like
Yeah.
Mary was like, she was like immediately like, "What? Eagles can't hug people." And I was like, "Shh, it's a miracle."
It's like, yeah, there are a lot of things in this show that can't actually happen. It's sort of like the argument against musicals. Just like people don't really sing in real life. I'm like, yeah, and superheroes don't exist either, dude. I'm sorry.
Yeah, right. You're like, sorry about that. Sorry, I thought we were watching a movie together.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I thought Eagly was one of the best parts of the show, and I mean, voice wise is just it's so right, like it's perfect. It's like it is. It's one of those things that like you're like, yes, nailed it.
Yeah, and it definitely just Peacemaker's whole thing, even before we like meet his dad and we find out about like the White Dragon stuff, is like it's not even on the nose. It's just sort of right there on the page.
Yes,
It's just like, oh, Peacemaker. He was the character from Charlton Comics that the comedian was based off of for Watchmen. He's like, I cherish peace. He's like the sort
That's
of.
why I really loved the diary thing, even though it was supposed to be like a plant. That it looked like Rorschach's fucking journal, you know.
Yeah.
Like I was like, ooh, I fucking love this, you know, like this ooh, this
the idea
touch.
that he's like the all-American man with a simple costume, and he has a fucking pet American eagle. But then you see his actual domestic life. You're like, oh yeah, his dad's a racist piece of shit, and he lives in a trailer park that's painted red, white, and blue. Just like, ooh, that's a metaphor if there ever was one.
Yep, it's right there, you know, like it's right there in front of you. Like
it's not like poking the nose, but it's like tickling. You're like,
yeah, right. It's like, and that's I do love. I thought it was great what James Gunn was saying in Suicide Squad with like the America using, you know, like these type of things to hold peace, you know, like but really, you know, that's not what's happening at all, obviously, you know, like they're just not it's peace to them, not peace to anybody else. And it's like I love what they're saying here all over, you know, like I was like the only part that I was like I thought was interesting was them being like, we don't kill cops, we don't kill cops, we don't kill cops. And I was just like, okay. I was like, I guess, all right. You know, like, that's fine, I guess, until the very end. And then they were just like, let's fucking...
We're sort of in an interesting cultural shift with that one. So there's going to be some adjustments and growing pains with that one. So I don't begrudge it too hard.
I did love... you know, there's serious things that they're talking about here with the, you know, the American dream, you know, the American industrial complex, our gigantic war machine. But then there's also the important parts of, does Bat-Mite fucking exist in this universe? Yes, he does. We got to confirm. Bat-Mite, baby. Bat-Mite, baby. We got him.
Which does, I mean, Batfleck is already the most comic booky Batman we've had in live action, just because, you know, down to like the costume and like the storylines we've done where he's fighting parademons and shit. But like little shit like that, like Batmite existing, is just like, wow, this is the most comic booky Batman that we've ever had, even if it's off screen sometimes.
Right, even if it's sometimes off screen.
Also, James Gunn's a fucking madman for just shadow dropping that. And I remember I watched an interview with him. I think it was the Kevin Smith one where he just kind of doubled down on that. Yeah, where he's just like, look, Aquaman doesn't fuck fish. Wonder Woman wasn't fucking screwing Peacemaker with her eyes. He's just an idiot. But Bat-Mite is canon.
I did love that though. They like he goes, I've never met her, but she did eye fuck me at a party one time. So cool, the little kid.
Yeah.
I was like, Jesus Christ. I love that whole scene of him talking to the kids.
Did you notice the newspaper?
Yes, Kite Man is confirmed, and his first villain he takes down. You know, like his first villain is Kite Man.
Yeah, that was the thing that I like sent you, and then
you could have given me a flashback. Though.
Yeah, I didn't want to.
Like, I almost want like a young John Cena shooting down Kite Man.
Did you actually pause and read some of the newspaper though? Because it's so fucking funny.
No, I didn't.
They were just like, Peacemaker brings about finally the end of Kite Man's reign of terror.
You're like,
The idea that people were actually terrified about Kite Man and he like ruled with an iron fist is so fucking funny to me.
So good. That's so awesome. And there's lots of like, this feels very connected to the DC universe, even if they're just talking about things. Of course, John Cena's Peacemaker's constantly saying things that he learned off the internet about the Justice League, that like they fuck fish. What's Green Arrow's one that he goes to brony conventions with a giant butthole on his back?
Yes.
And then Akonis is like, no, that one's true. That one's true. Everything else is a lie. That one is true. And I was like, no.
That's another thing that James Gunn like doubled down on. He said besides the butthole thing, Green Arrow being a brony is canon. And it's just like that fucking Breaking Bad meme. He can't keep getting away with it.
He can't keep getting away with it. It's true. You're like, Jesus Christ. I did love how often they mentioned other heroes, like, and brought them, into the conversation, because that's how the DC universe should feel. That like, they're everywhere, and it's always on topic of conversation because they're crazy, like, and they're doing crazy shit all the time, like, so it's like,
and you get like nice obscure drops, even beyond like Batman. I love that they fucking name drop Matter Eater Lad.
Right.
That's so.
I saw Matter Eater Lad eat a whole Wendy's. That shit made me lose it. I lost it at that line.
Great. I was fucking dying.
The horrified look on his face as he said he ate a whole Wendy's. I was like, oh my God, I love this. So fucked up. This definitely feels like a show Grant Morrison's watching and just giggling to himself.
Oh yeah.
Like, is that weird to think about?
But it gives me that like comic booky joy, just like the Calendar Man thing in the Suicide Squad. I'm like, it's so fucking comic book nerd. I love it. It cracks me the hell up.
Fuck you. Like, just saying fuck
you fucking pussy.
It's fucking wild. It's crazy shit. I really do. I think that's what makes this show kind of special, is that like CW shows feel disconnected. Gotham feels disconnected. Pennyworth doesn't even feel like it's in the same stratosphere. Like, fucking what?
When they added that to HBO Max, I'm like, oh yeah, that was a thing, wasn't it?
That existed, didn't it? Oh God. Not that anybody, like, everyone's making these superhero shows and somebody pitched fucking young Alfred being a secret spy instead of Grayson. Instead of fucking Grayson! Sorry, I'm angry. I'm sorry for getting angry. But, like, that show would have done well if you were like young, sexy Dick Grayson being a spy. Like, that would have been something.
I mean, there's something there, and plus there are actual just espionage characters in the DCU that you could use, as opposed to like trying to tie everything to Batman and like giving them stories that shouldn't exist.
Yep, and you're like, well, this doesn't make any. It's not that it doesn't make any sense, because it's its own story. You can tell its own stories, but you're always like, you're scratching your head basically the whole time. You're just scratching your head. You're just like, what the fuck? But this feels so connected, so many ties, so many little things, and I love that. Like I actually really liked how much Amanda Waller was in this. I was like, hell yeah.
And she's not in it much.
No, she's not in it much. But you're like, hell yeah. When I first saw her just on the screen, I was like, uh-oh, is that it? Oh, we're going to get Amanda Waller, but they got more. And you're like, okay,
yeah,
cool. I'm cool with that. So we've already said spoilers, but the biggest spoiler of all is talking about the butterflies. The main plot of this entire show is that like there's an alien race that's taking over. Now, Deshaun, I don't remember... what is this comic book reference? You might know this more than me.
No, like this one didn't really ring any bells for me either.
Yeah, I was like, is this new? Is this new?
So I don't know if it's new or if it's something like super obscure, because as we mentioned with like the shadow drops and stuff, Gunn seems to know his fucking comic book shit.
Right, it does, and that's why I was like, is Gunn outdoing us right here? Like, I was like, what's happening here?
I was a little worried about the butterflies at first, only because the concept on paper seemed a little too similar to Starro again after we just had the Suicide Squad.
And it feels at first I was scared because it felt very Skrull. Like, I didn't like, like that they take over and they just like are them. But of course, they very much differentiate away from it. I think the butterflies are cool because they add this like scary, like horror element to it. You know, that they like fly in your mouth and fucking take over your body, and then they're sitting up there in your brain. And the only way to get them out is to shoot them out. You're like, oh, okay. Like, you're like, cool zombie take, you know, like I like it. Cause they definitely turn into like just straight up zombies.
Yeah. It's like the John Carpenter effect.
Yeah.
There's that joke that like John Carpenter never did a zombie movie, but he did like several zombie movies. He just refused to make them like normal zombies and wanted to do something outside the box.
Right. I like that.
Like The Fog is basically a zombie movie.
Basically.
Like Prince of Darkness is basically a zombie movie. Yep. But they're not traditional zombies.
Nope. And I would say that, yeah, definitely this is not traditional zombies. It's like, you know, it's very much aliens, which I thought was kind of fun for this series. For such like a down to earth grounded superhero, which just is always just bringing out guns, you know, like the most high-tech thing is his helmets, and he barely uses them.
Yeah,
you know,
this could have very much easily have just been like, we could have, and to be honest, with a show like this, I almost expected them to maybe just do what we got with the White Dragon stuff, and that just be the main threat because they keep it street level. But the fact that this is like a global alien threat is dope.
Yeah, global alien threat. Your dad's trying to kill you, you know, like you're still on the loose, you know, like from all the police. It's like it really does. I think the three plot lines here really work well together, you know, like to make this kind of deeper, you know, like you're like, oh, okay, I like that. Now, the butterflies, I think is great because it is such a. Especially for Peacemaker, a moral gray, you know, like is that like he thinks they're just bad guys, they're just taking people over, and then he learns that he's working with one, you know, like, and you know, like, does he ever learn that he was a butterfly? But it doesn't matter. Maru, he doesn't really.
Yeah, I don't remember if Peacemaker specifically ever actually found out that like Myrn was a butterfly.
But he definitely, you know, keeps Goth in a jar and like,
you
know, sympathizes with the bugs. And I really like that they weren't. I think that's the best part about this is that we could have literally just had straight aliens and Peacemaker's got to kill him. That's it. We could have just done that, and I would, you know, and I would have been like, fine, cool, you know, like, but that they add this layer of that like, oh, they might be doing something. They're just trying to keep themselves alive. And on top of that, they're also vowing to like save our planet and keep peace, you know, like, and you're like, oh guys, these might not be totally bad dudes. But then, you know, Peacemaker makes that decision. But I think that's one of the more interesting
I do like
bits.
the speech that like Goff gives them about like, this is why we need to take over humanity, and you're just like, well, you're not wrong. Really.
It's a great villain speech because it's like, it's one of those like Thanos moments where you're like, is Thanos spitting right now? You're like, you're like, oh shit. It's kind of like Goth, and you're like, Goth is spitting, you know?
It's like, and I feel guilty that I sort of agree with a lot of this.
It's just
it's just one of those, I like to call it like, every time I do I like to call that my internal scream brought out loud.
Yes. But of course it brings up it's funny, I'm watching so much fucking Gundam, so I of course equate this to Gundam, is that it's like Char, that he's like, I'm just trying to bring peace, I'm just trying to save the planet, but, you know, the ends justify the means, and I'm going to murder half the planet. And you're like, no, Char, don't do it. Like, you know, like, and he's like, do they kind of deserve it? And you're like, Char, you might be right, but don't fucking do that. Like, you know, like, you're like, it's about the methods. It's funny. The real lesson of this is like, it's about the methods of which you do all this, you know, like you can't just fucking force people to do things. You can't just force anybody to do anything, because that's not what, you know, that's just fascism.
I love like, the little beat at the end. It's before before Ghost Dad sits down, of just like Goff goes back to his place, and as that like little bit of mercy before the end of all this, that gives him the last bit of the food.
right? It's just like Goth isn't even going to survive the rest very long, but you know, he's going to give him some food. I thought that was nice. I was like, oh, it's like funny. It's like one of my first thoughts after that was I was like, oh, Peacemaker killed his pet. I was like, oh no, because there's that like really like sad moment where she's like, you took care of me and you said nice things to me, you know, and you're like, oh, Peacemaker, like, you know, like you're like, that's gonna chop you up inside, bruh. And that's
if you don't have enough issues,
right? That's what I really liked about this show is that they were constantly like, here's the things Peacemaker's going through. Also, here's, you know, a conundrum to even that. You know, like they keep throwing him into situations that make him question his thought process. And I kind of really thought that was great. I was like, oh, shit, growth, character development. What the fuck is happening?
What a novel concept.
What a novel concept. I will say, for the average viewer, another nitpick of mine, and it's just a nitpick because I really did like this show, and we'll give our review, our rating at the end. But it's like there is a lot of montages because James Gunn loves music. He fucking loves music. He fucking loves playing music over things, and sometimes it sort of feels like montage to montage at points. Yeah. You know, like it's like boop,
some of that Rocky IV energy, if you will.
And it's not a bad thing, but I'm saying this for the general audience, is that there's lots and lots of montages, and you might be like, that's one too many fucking montages.
Yeah,
you know?
And there are also definitely, at least like from a personality standpoint, there are a lot of parallels between Peacemaker and Star-Lord, just that like man-child attitude who loves to listen to old music kind of thing, but thankfully there's like definitely enough to differentiate the two.
And especially because I feel like they go so much deeper here, you know, like they're able to, but like, you know, like they go a lot deeper, you know, like, and you're like, oh, I like that. I like it. And you know, it's funny. James Gunn keeps doing these like kill your dad things. And I'm like, James Gunn, are you okay? Do you need to say something to your dad? Do you need to say, I love you? Do you need your dad to say, I love you too? Like, what happened to you? So the second dad, he's just destroyed. And you're like, all right, okay. That's what's happening. But okay, definitely, I've kind of already brought it up. The action in this show is great. I don't know if it like gets that visceral brutalness all the time that the Suicide Squad was able to bring across, especially with like the axe into a bunch, you know, like that guy.
I think it's just a matter of like it not having like the same money as the Suicide Squad did, so it's like working with your limitations.
But it is brutal, and it's you know, like, and they really bring on the blood and guts and gore, and I don't mind it, and I like it. I'm like, but I really do want to point out how good the action is in this show. It's like, you know, we keep comparing it to the CW shows, but a lot of the CW action scenes come down to like two dudes with their back against the wall shooting at things, you know, like
always fucking fighting in some warehouse or like the middle of a street.
Yeah, and I think that this is able to be so varied and all over the place. You get lots of great fight scenes with Judo Master. Fucking hats off to fucking Judo Master for even appearing in this. I was like, holy shit, Judo Master.
Master. Yeah.
I was like, what a fucking
pull.
That's a pull. Like I was like, oh shit. But it was kind of great because Judo Master was like sort of superheroing, you know, like just being like, no, I think that these aliens are doing the right thing, and just kind of like kicking people's ass. You're like, okay.
I love that he like contribute as a gag. He contributes nothing to the final episode other than because he showed up late and he just cries into his bag of flaming hot Cheetos.
I thought that was really funny.
Really fucking funny to me. But the fact that like no one,
what a product placement though, the Flamin' Hot Cheetos thing. I was like,
as a big fan of Flamin' Hot Cheetos, I approve.
It's one of those things where you're like, I can see that this is a product placement, but I love you, Flamin' Hot Cheetos. So
more of a Flamin' Hot Chester fries guy, just because I like the textures of those more, where they have like the pot fries sort of shape.
Yes, I do like those too.
We're not sponsored by fucking Frito-Lay.
Not fucking no, that's big money. We got that.
But hey, Judo Master doesn't actually get taken down by anyone successfally. In fact, they were joking.
Except for
Economos sort of
takes him out, hits him with a car, and then hits him with the tire iron like 6 times.
Yeah,
I was like, Jesus Christ. What is that helmet
The actor
made
who
out
plays
of?
Judo Master was joking about it on Twitter because Peacemaker's so fucking overpowered.
Yeah.
They were just like, man, is there anything Peacemaker can't do? And he just replied, beat Judo Master.
That's fucking awesome. It's true though, he couldn't. I love that they were like, that he's like, oh, I'm gonna have an epic rematch, and then it gets taken away from him. And he's like, he's like, come on.
he's like so frustrated.
I love that. I thought that was really fucking funny. I was like, that's a true look inside the fucking superhero head. You know, they're like, yes, I'm gonna get revenge. Get my ass kicked. But like, the final fight scene is something else. I really want to keep bringing it up because it really is. It's like there's several really long shots, and they're able to convey this like very fast motions, you know, like without losing anything. It's great.
You have like fucking Vigilante chopping off limbs. You have like Peacemaker with the shield, which is cool because it's just like, this is what Captain America would actually be able to do if we were allowed to show some blood.
I know. I was like, holy fuck, this is what I wanted from Shield fight, and hell yeah. That he shoots the fucking shield to slam it into that guy. I was like, top notch there, you know. But that's the thing, isn't it? That Avengers is just murdering those guys, but they never just show the blood. So it's like,
more or less.
And we never get like really fucking visceral like stabbings, you know, like and like it scenes like that. And DC is like, no, here you go. This is how you do it. here's how
it even does like the anime thing where it's just like, well, it's the final episode. It's time to play the full version of the opening song.
I know.
In the middle of our most important moment.
I love that. I was like, here's the theme, you know, like that was very anime to me, you know, like you're like, oh, the opening's playing, you know, this is some serious shit. you're like, here it comes. I actually really like that. Because I think you could keep seeing like the anime influences in all this a little bit. It feels like if somebody puts out like an animated anime version of this just as a joke, I would totally get it, you know, because it feels like it. Sorry, damn it. You were saying
we were talking about the final fight.
Yeah, the final fight. It's fucking the action is fantastic, and everyone gets to go all out. I thought it was so funny that Adebayo. Sorry, thank you. Adebayo really goes. I love I'm made for this, because she's been saying I'm not made for this the whole time, and I thought that was a nice.
And she just rocks in with the dual pistols and starts
really handsome ass.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. I love the different helmet functionalities. Just like, oh, that one's anti-grav. That one just gives you scabies. Which, as someone who's had scabies before, I hate you, James Gunn. That's very cruel and unusual.
I thought that was funny. They're like scabies in a mile radius except for the wearer. I'm like,
it's just like ah.
When they definitely implied the first time that it just gives you scabies by wearing it. Like they definitely imply when he first introduces it that it just gives you scabies. And what's his dad says, getting scabies is good for you. Teach scabies.
Like, it's real fucking nice.
Really fucking nuts. I think the many helmets, I'm sort of worried we'll not get some like more helmets this next season.
Yeah, because you pretty much got rid of the person who made them. So what are we gonna do?
Unless somehow his ghost teaches John, Peacemaker to make them or something.
Either that or like, I mean, this team is kind of connected, although who knows what kind of help they'll have now that they kind of cut their ties and burn that bridge with Amanda Waller. But I'm sure they could find some excuse to be like, what fucking inventor can we find to do it?
Right. We'll see, like they might even just bring in like Fox, that's what I was thinking. I was like,
Lucius Fox, or they'll do something weird like, oh shit, it's the Clock King. He's gonna make me some new helmets. Because
it cracked me up because they were like the only man who knows how to make them died, and I was like Lucius Fox is still alive. He could make one of those. Was my first thought. I don't know why that crossed my head. First thing I was like, yeah. I was saying earlier, and I don't think we brought it up exactly, is that I really loved because we were talking about important things and all that, you know, like it's all about, you know, all these deep subjects, but then he'll just rail on superheroes really hard for like real issues. Like, of course, Batman just keep jailing Joker. I thought that was actually a really good scene, you know, like I was like, hi, you know, like this is pretty good. Like, you know, like this actually says what, you know, has to be said. You're like, oh,
but you know, comics are designed to go on forever.
Exactly.
We'll run into the Punisher thing where like it just makes Frank Castle seem incompetent that he unsuccessfully kills all his major villains.
Yeah, right. You're like, come on. He could kill everybody. Why wouldn't he be able to kill them? You know?
Like, I think it was Darren Mooney who like made the joke that like even if you killed the Joker, there would be some like give it like 2 years and there would be like a 12-issue Return of Joker storyline that would be a huge event. Yeah, exactly.
It's just a huge like roundabout door there.
Yeah.
Of course, the most important part of the final fight scene, and I thought was actually really quite funny, was the Justice League showing up late to it, which they are really late because they're definitely like they make the call during daytime and then it's nighttime. Like they're so late to this.
Yeah.
You know? Like you're like, this is so, and it made me think, well, Batman wasn't in the Justice League when they showed up. Is that why Batman wasn't around to be like, let's go?
To fucking kick their asses in gear.
Yeah, I'm like, it's just Wonder Woman, Flash, Aquaman, and Superman there, which was
it's not
really
Batman
fun.
or Cyborg, which
yes,
Gunn said he tried.
Yeah,
like he said he really tried to have all of them in there, but he can only get away with so much.
I thought it was funny that like they definitely couldn't show, you know, like. You know, like they shot the scene with like not showing any of the superheroes, but then they definitely shot the scene with Jason Momoa and who's the Ezra Miller way afterward. You can kind of like tell like that they were like, hey, we got these fake Justice Leagues at the end. You guys want in? You know,
it does work that it's specifically like Jason Momoa and Ezra Miller because they're the ones that actually do have. Yeah, they have the 2 next movies, so
they're the unintentional,
guys. But it works out. We really got to do something about Henry Cavill because
I know
after like this and Shazam, I'm like, come on.
Yeah, you're just keep showing. Seems like Superman doesn't have a fucking face at this point. Yeah. You only see the bottom half of him, which I've seen the behind the scenes photo. The suit looks nice. The suit that they put on Superman, it looks nice. I do love this scene because, of course, we already have like Harley Quinn. And, you know, saying fuck all they want. And then you have the Justice League Snyder cut where Batman says fuck at the end. You're like, Batman would say fuck? Okay. But then you're like Barry and fucking Aquaman saying fuck. You're like, yes, the Justice
Barry.
League is all
You're like, fuck. I love this.
I love this. I did love that. He's like, I'm sick of this rumor.
It's so not a rumor. Sick of that rumor. It's not a rumor. Fuck you, Barry.
I was like, damn. I love that though. I thought that was really fucking funny. I was like, there we go. I do kind of like that. I do really like that moment. It does feel like, you know, very like, of course this is not important enough, you know, like that we could get everybody here, but you know, like at least they got some, you know, some people there, you know, like, but I do like the Justice League saying fuck. Why not? You know? Let's fucking keep doing that. Let's make it happen.
It's one of those things where like, they can interact. It's not gonna feel weird. It's okay. They can show up as like a gag to be like, shit, we got here too late. You've already got it covered. And they can say fuck here, and even if they won't say it in their own PG-13 movies, it's okay. It's fine.
It's fine. I do love that, like, just the whole time they kept saying that Aquaman fucked fish, you know, and then, like it really did pay off at the end. I was like, there you go, that's something, you know. You know, it wasn't just a throwaway joke. It was built in, you know, like you're like, all right, I like that. But yeah, I think the Justice League being there adds a lot of like serious context, you know, like you're like, okay, so it's this Justice League, you know, like you're like, that's here, and you know, like this is what's, you know, even if we don't get another Justice League movie, there they are again, you know. You're like, there it is. But yeah, I mean, of course, it's like, it's funny because I don't know if at many movies I've seen Ezra Miller saying fuck, but you know, Jason Momoa saying fuck again, you're like, Thumbs up. So Jason Momoa is very good at saying fuck. Like, like you're like, very good. There is an art, guys. I don't know if you've listened to our podcast before, but there's a fucking art to saying fuck, and a lot of people could say it with a little, tenderness. They like scared to say fuck, and you're like, no, fuck that. Let's fucking do this.
Yeah, there's always that. Like, I always equate it to like when you're a kid saying swears for the first time, and you kind of like look around.
Can I say fuck?
It was it cracked me up when it came out, the reboot.
Yeah.
And I had friends who were just like, I can't believe these kids swear this much. I'm like, I swore this much as a kid. I just didn't do it around my parents.
Right. That cracked me up because I was just like, it's one of those things that, not around my parents. Yeah, of course I did.
Yeah.
Of course I did.
Of course.
As soon as I knew him, I was like, here we go. Here's some fucking shit. But, then I would constantly get in trouble at home for saying crap. I can't say crap, and I would say crap all the time.
Yeah, I would say crap, and I would say like freaking instead of fucking, and they'd be like, "Don't say that." I'm like, I'm not even saying it. What do you want me to censor it further? Want me to go further down?
Right? You're like, what am I supposed to say? Like, what the fuck? But yeah, is there anything else more you want to talk about Peacemaker-wise?
No, I think it was a great time. Even if we didn't get a season 2, I would have been like happy with this as like a miniseries. It like totally plays. Although it would have been a really haunting note to leave Peacemaker on.
Right? You're like, I will say, so we're on the rating right now. Now, of course, we said it earlier. The ratings are: does it go on the shelf? Do you buy it at discount? Does it stay streaming? And it will, of course, that's, it's us saying it should stay streaming, not that it is streaming or whatever. Fuck. And the Ediverge Reddit.
Believe it or not, we don't control distribution.
If you had to take a guess, we don't. But basically, I would say you gotta own this. This is fucking funny. This is funny, mature.
I have a physical copy of the Suicide
done.
Squad. If they put this on Blu-ray, I'd probably get it. There have been plenty of things where like they started off as streaming only shows that I've bought physically anyway.
Right?
Like I have the Criterion Marriage Story. That's a Netflix movie.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you're always are like, should I buy a Netflix movie? You're like, they're never gonna get rid of it, and you're like, nah, I'm still gonna. But then all the Marvel Netflix shows
just left, and you're like, okay, maybe they can go away.
Maybe they can disappear, and that's really it, is that in a world where they're taking away 3DS and the Wii U eShop and completely tanking those systems from being pretty much functional for anybody, that had the virtual stuff, you gotta own things physical. And I would say, Peacemaker's fucking worth owning physical, just in case HBO goes to gets bought by somebody else or something, just to be safe.
Companies are always fucking eating each other up, so you never know what's gonna happen. Like,
you never know.
The fucking thing that's going on with Comixology right now.
Yeah, is it being thrown around from Amazon? I thought Amazon
it's trying to be merged. It's trying to be merged with like their Kindle stuff, and there's just like stuff that's been like way lost in translation.
Yeah,
like Guided View is gone.
What?
And everyone's having a shit fit, including me, because Guided View is the shit for reading digital comics.
Yeah, going from panel to panel is nice. You know, you don't have to see the full page and then be like, zoom the fuck in on it.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just like, it makes
so people are having a conniption. It seems like one of those things, like it seems like enough stink is going to be made for them to fix some of it. But for right now, you're like, guys.
You fucked it.
Yeah.
You fucked it. But thank you, guys. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Warp Shelf. It's very snowy today, so we had to do the remote epised. But thank you
New
for
England weather.
Yes. But thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for always supporting the show. We're everywhere where podcasts are hosted, but we are now on the Galaxy of Geek YouTube. So if you didn't realize where you're watching it, please subscribe down below so you can get every episode of The Warp Shelf and anything else that we do. Be sure to check out galaxygeek.com, where we post every one of these podcasts. If you're like, if you're like, I don't know if I want to go to this podcast platform or YouTube or whatever, just go to galaxygeek.com. It's where it all is. And also reviews and many other geeky things.
Yeah.
Guys, be sure to check us out on our personal channels. So Deshaun is
Mod
Karika, and I am Frank on Twitter, Instagram, Twitter and Instagram is the main boys there. For geeky stuff being posted, I would say those are probably your best choice. Also, check out my Gundam page. If you like Gundams, I'm posting Gundams pretty much every day. I'm making a lot of fucking Gundam, guys.
It's just a social media document of your addiction.
Yes, it is. It truly is. And the giant box stack you can see in the far corner over here. That's you're like, wait, why is that so tall? Why is it up to his waist there? Oh, Jesus Christ.
I feel like I could very much, if I had the disposable income, I could very much be that for Lego shit because I just love Lego so much.
Right?
But
no, and there's a lot of people like that.
It helps that like Legos are so fucking expensive. Seriously. That's what holds me back. It's a good thing.
Yeah, no, it's like it's one of those things that these are cheaper than fucking than Legos, you know, like, and it's like, and it's not, and of course I like these because they're more intricate and like they look real, you know, instead of the blockiness of a Lego. But like, it's one of those things that you're like, I mostly paid $20 to $30 for most of these, and sometimes lower than that, you know, like a lot of $10 models there, and like. You know, if you were trying to buy the same amount of Legos, you'd be fucked.
I mean, it's like the argument with like my Pops versus like collectible, like nice figurines. Those are expensive. A Pop's only going to be $10 to $12.
Right? If you haven't fucking noticed the Batman that Deshaun bought me last Christmas? Was that last?
2 Christmases ago.
2 Christmases ago. It's like, those are expensive ass shit, guys. You can't. It's like buying the Tiny Pop Funkos. That just makes sense, you know. Like I go even smaller. I go really Tiny Pop Funkos because I don't have the space. But like,
I actually like gathered up. Well, not gathered up. I cataloged everything and found out like what my collection is worth.
Oh shit, dog.
It's like $4,000.
Holy shit. Holy shit! That's because you got some like exclusive guys. You got
some exclusive early guys, and some of them I have autographed. So
and I know you haven't actually spent like crazy prices on any of these guys either. You have
not really.
I don't usually on a Funko. Like
I don't usually fuck with like flippers and stuff. The most I'll pay for a pop is like $30, and that's if I know if I don't get it now, it's gonna get even way more ridiculous later.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure the dioramas that are coming out are going to be something fucking pretty.
Yeah.
They're going to be expensive. I saw one was like $50 for like the 4-figure set. And I was like, Jesus Christ, guys. I was like, that thing is huge too.
Besides the point, you can check the Instagram every time I fucking get a new pop.
Right? Exactly. But guys, thank you so much for your support. Thank you guys for tuning in, and hope you have a great rest of your day.
See you next